Hello and welcome to the Community Town Hall. I am Zaylin. With me, we have Malice from Plague, special guest Bumble from Feylords. We have Puka from Hairbringers of Light, or the Lollipop Guild, if that's what you prefer. And then Poison Taco from Part Time Heroes. Hi, everybody.
I'm up
Hi.
to kicking ass in 19 hours, so I got one more and I'm good to go.
All right, well, we'll try to get you that hour. So, today, guys, I wanted to talk about that lovely taboo topic of stepping down as a guild leader or if you're in guild leadership. Never a fun topic and probably something that most people don't want to do to begin with. But yeah, so I'll open up the floor. Whoever wants to start with that.
Nobody say anything.
What
Nobody
gives you
wants to talk
An
about
silence?
hour of silence because no one wants to
wants
talk about it.
You will not take me from my throne.
Nah, I'll start it off. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it carries a stigma that you think. I think the biggest fear that a lot of people have when it comes to stepping down is generally related around whoever fills the responsibilities that you're letting go of. Will they continue to do so with the same amount of scrutiny that you've been doing them? Obviously, life comes, life happens, and you have to dedicate your time elsewhere. And so your biggest question is what's going to happen to your guild, and ultimately what's going to happen to the players that kind of depend on what you've been doing to keep them together, keep them connected, and keep them playing together and having fun. And I think a lot of people just kind of worry about safety nets, having them in place, and being able to know that, like, if can't show up for a certain amount of time, or if you have to leave indefinitely, is the guild, is your guild going to survive, or your community going to survive?
So you'd see this topic more of an issue of losing something that has meant a lot to you rather than the arrogance and pride of someone who happens to just have a lot of power at the time.
Yeah, with me, which again, I have not, and this is just me personally, I've never had to deal with overthrowing a tyrannical guild leader, or dealing with that drama, or I have been privy to viewing guild splits, guild breakdowns, and being privy to their guild meetings and how that people have torn things apart. But with our guild specifically, I've never really had that problem. It's always more of a, we have this weight that you need to shoulder. Who wants to shoulder this? And someone's got to step up to the plate. Um, and that's kind of the, when life comes at you, or you have an IRL responsibility that is pulling you away from your community. Um, I think that's one of the things where, like, you need to be proactive in creating a safety net, so that if you can't log in for a month, 2 months, everything just doesn't disappear.
Wouldn't that be more the responsibility of your officers, those to take care of if you can't log in for a month or 2 months? I mean, we're just talking about, either you've completely lost your grip on reality, you're a complete a hole, sorry, Malice, and you just need to go, or maybe it's, hey, you just had your seventh kid and your wife has put her foot down, or her husband has put his foot down and said enough is enough. Get off the dang game and come be with your family. That I think is more the issue than just a sabbatical.
Well, yeah, sure, and I think that's kind of what I'm leaning at. People, like, for example, Harbingers of Light. I inherited kind of the leadership role in that because of that situation with the current leader. He was pulled away. Real life was pulling and tugging him in multiple directions, and he just couldn't put the time in. And seeing how he held on to this baby that he had created, which was Harbingers of Light, all these years ago, and that I joined in high school. Um, Seeing that this guild that he had created, and him, how cautious he was handing this over, like the nail kind of like, and just like, all right, he's put his faith in me, was when I got the domain transfer. You know what I mean? Like that. That's the big, like, all right, it's your baby, go with it. When
The
you own the,
keys to the kingdom.
that's the keys of the kingdom. When you own the domain, it's like, it's your baby, go with it. And that was, that was one of those things where that transfer was, real life pulled him away. Um, And you know, it was something, the guild was something that meant to me different than what it meant to him, but it had the same impact and importance on my life. And I wanted to keep it alive. And I think it's important to know and realize those people that are around you. Which, and you know, we're in the middle of a little bit of kind of restructuring, but something I just looked about is, I mean, this guild was founded in 1999. It's been going for 20 years. It's like, whew, to even wrap your head around that. It's had a long run and it's impacted a lot of people's lives. So finding people that cherish that and cherish that guild name, I think is very important. And those are definitely the people that you want to not only set up for administrative roles, but also for essentially when life comes at you, relinquishing your role and giving it over to them to continue on, passing that torch.
Do any of you other guys have experience in other communities where you've had a guild leader that either A, should have stepped down or needed to step down?
In many cases, well, it's kind of going back where Puka was going first. It was I actually stepped down running Plague originally, and that's actually kind of ended up being the direction of why we became a community, because that I kind of came back. The guy didn't want to give up the guild that had been bequeathed to him, and but he was driving it into the ground, and everyone was very upset. And they were all like, "Well, we're gonna have to quit and reform." And then that's when I started doing a lot of king building the other way. But as far as so, what exactly was your question again?
Have you been in communities or guilds within your gaming career where you've experienced either the leader stepping down and it going well, or something else, or you've got somebody that you're just like, gosh, everybody in the guild thinks this person needs to go, but they just won't go?
Um, well, we were like I said, my example would be the DAOC experience. But another thing that we've actually experienced a lot over the time of history is kind of facilitating that in other guilds. Like when there is a problem and you see other guild leaders that have kind of lost their grasp on their guild, and their guild is letting everyone know that there's a problem, you know, and they're still hanging there, but then we will sometimes step in and try to facilitate their ability to leave that guild and have a home. So we'll use that as kind of guild merger functions, and it often burns a guild leader who's the only person left behind.
No, and I've had direct experience with that. Kind of in the opposite um, spectrum of that, and I'll give a quick anecdote. It has to do with Arcage. It has to do with another guild that was in our alliance, um, and they were a larger community, but they did not enter Arcage as a like dedicated chapter. Meaning they really, and this is kind of something I didn't know at the time, didn't have any guild officers. So they had officers that would be in Discord to handle issues, but as far as officers coming into the guild facilitating activities, they did not have that. And on top of that, their guild leader, though their guild leader was the guild leader or their community leader was the guild leader in the game, they didn't really have any leadership, or that guild leader wasn't very active in the game. And what happened was initially, you know, they broke down, and we were being very proactive in the game, very organized, and so as to not burn that other guild leader and to not burn their community, I was the opposite of that. Instead of being open and welcome, I was like, listen, guys, you need to kind of create some leaders from within yourself, and essentially we will be there to support you if anything you need, but y'all need to fly your own name, is essentially what I told them. And that ended up burning us because well, I mean, long story short, they like a tyrannical leader rose. It was insane. But instead, and we still members came to us, and I was like, listen, after me telling you that, if you're still going to come to us, our doors are definitely open. If I say go away and you're like, no, I wanted to do guild, I'm like, you're in the guild. But the point is, like, it turned bad, and I'll never make that mistake again. But it was more of I was trying to not step on the toes of another leader and not appear as if I'm trying to take their community, because we have an effective form of leadership set up and they had no leadership whatsoever and their members didn't have any organization. So I think that was one of those instances where, in my opinion, their leadership should have been more clear in explaining their situation to their members and then allowing the members to make a choice, because everyone was kind of in the dark in their guild and they were like, well, no one's here doing anything. And even I was like, I don't know why. And that was one of those times where it's like a little bit more clarity needed to be given. And because I don't think there was a time where anyone needed to step down, but it was like no one ever stepped up in the first place. That's kind of what it seemed happened. But that was just a little anecdote to go off what you said there, Malice.
So let me ask you guys this. Do you have, when you set up your charters, whether it was for your community or for the sub guilds that you create out of your community, do you have set up a clear path of succession, or what you do if you need to be replaced? Is there a way for your people to do that? And Bumble, I'm going to throw this at you to start.
Okay.
Because you're being quiet.
I can say that. No, I do not do that. I've actually led a lot of guilds in the past over various MMOs. And so I've also left a lot of guilds behind. So I kind of have experience with what the question is of kind of stepping down as a guild leader and transferring on ownership. And it's really something that kind of depends on like the culture of your guild. Like I've had guilds where we were fairly like competitive and our goal was just to, raise the power of our characters, be good at PvP together and all that. So when I kind of stepped away from that game and therefore that guild, I kind of got them together and I was like, look, I'm kind of passing the torch. Like you guys are going to be leading this guild now. So I want you guys to figure out how we're going to like do the succession. So I thought that was a pretty good solution because I could just have them figure it out and then I could be like, you guys are empowered now. Like that's what you want to do it and like go blaze your own path. And then for other guilds, like I've led guilds that were just kind of like casual, like revolving door guilds where it's just kind of like a gimmick and it's just me and my friends leading a guild and just bringing people in, having fun. Like I had a role-playing guild in Star Wars The Old Republic that was like that. And when I left that guild behind, I kind of just like took stock of the different members. I didn't have like a specific person in mind, but I kind of started thinking about like who would actually make a good replacement. And it's kind of a tough choice because I mean, you don't want to pick the guy that's like the most enthusiastic about becoming the new guild leader because it's like, okay, so this guy's like super power hungry. It might not really be a great choice. You don't necessarily want to choose the guy who's just like the most vocal or who's the best player. I kind of ended up choosing this guy who was like pretty mature and chill, and he was kind of like in like one of the popular cliques of the guild. You know how these various different cliques can form your guild, but they were kind of just like a chill, mature clique. Everyone respected this guy, and I said, okay, like I'm just gonna make you like the guild leader because you have this kind of like influential group of people. And another aspect is like if you're promoting someone who's like part of little clique in your guild to become the guild leader, it's actually going to be their little clique that's leading the guild, not just them. So I kind of had to think about that and say, okay, I think like you guys would take this guild in a good direction. You're chill, you're mature, you're not gonna like just burn it down. And in one case, I actually was running like a kind of like a troll guild, and when I left, I actually gave leadership to the biggest troll in the guild, and I did say like burn it down, like give it a glorious death because I'm out and I don't really care anymore. Yeah, so that's my experience. So, and I actually, to your previous question, I've also been part of a like coup d'etat where we kind of just forcefully took over a guild. It was in World of Warcraft in vanilla. We were playing on like a new server that launched like 6 months after the game had come out, so it was kind of a fresh start for a bunch of people, and we all were together under this raiding guild that had basically all the top players in the server, like the top levelers and stuff. And the guy who made the guild actually did a great job like putting it all together, and we had like a competent raiding team. But there were members of the officer group that kind of felt like they could do a better job because they were very hardcore power gamer type people. So I was the main tank of the guild, and I got approached at this one point, and they're like, listen, we're basically planning on taking over the guild, and you're kind of like the last piece that needs to fall as the main tank. Like if we get you, it's game over. And they kind of gave me a pitch where they were basically saying like, look, we don't have anything against this guild leader, but he's kind of just like like he's a chill dude, and he's not really like pushing us to like actually like be a good progression guild, and that's what we want. So like if we take over, we're actually gonna like make it a more like orderly, progressive, focused guild. And I was like, okay, whatever. We did it, and the guy who took over the guild ended up leading us to glory. It was really fun and really effective guild, so it worked out for us in the end. But yeah, it's something that, because I've experienced it, I kind of keep that in mind as guild leader. I'm like, I gotta be on my game if I'm gonna be a guild leader, because I don't want to be in a position where my guild is like, oh, this guy put together a really good guild, but he himself, kind of sucks. So let's take over and then boot him out.
You never want to get knifed on the stairs of the Senate.
Yeah, it'd be a little embarrassing.
Well,
Honestly.
again, I think that's one of those things where, as always, clearly defining what your objectives are in a particular title, I think is very important. And being able to approach a leader and be like, hey, you say this, but this is what I see in application. I mean, everyone as a leader needs to be able to reflect on that and check themselves. And if they're right, if the player's approaching you have a good point, then you either got to make changes or change your mission statement, one of the two.
Yeah,
And be willing to, bid them goodbye.
exactly. And yeah, with my example, I just want to say that like I look back at that and I feel really bad about it. Like the guy was not a bad guy, and we kind of just like, it was like an asshole move. So I'm not saying like, yeah, that's the way to do it. If your guild leader it isn't up to snuff, just take over the guild. Yeah, but I agree with you guys saying, and I really appreciate all of the perspectives that you're bringing, because like I'm not a leader of a multi-gaming community like you guys, multi-gaming guilds, but I have just led a variety of different one-off guilds for different games.
That's a whole other topic issue of the idea of a gaming community versus a guild. But if you have the same people that jump from game to game with you, it's kind of a community.
Yeah.
The rest of you guys, do you have stuff built into your charters or whatever it is that you want to call your founding document?
Well, first of all, I
it.
am the Senate.
So you stab yourself in the stairs?
No. It's just that if I detect treason, I'll do like the spinny whirly thing and kill all 4 Jedi in one shot.
Okay.
With my system, it's
Kill
built.
Joe Poison Taco.
My system and drafts and spreadsheets and all the stuff I have is all built to function without me. It's just a matter of getting the people to fill positions, get people that would be confident enough to lead. We're not really at the point where I could have a good succession, but the blueprint's there. I just need to follow it and get good people.
Okay, so he's got something sort of in place. Malice, Puka?
Well, we actually have a system. I have a council that serves under me, and they have the voting power to vote me out of existence and replace me. So,
and we have a very similar setup in that our council is not under me; they are alongside of me. So everyone, from a permission standpoint, there is no person that has less permissions than I do on our council. Be that in Discord or the only controlling thing I have will be our domain name. But it's something that I'm fearful of and always have to be conscious of. Like even with our current council, like I'm definitely the more active member in the games we're playing, and so it's always a constant thought of finding people to bring into that. We don't ever rotate people off, because it's more of a, if your personality's right, you'll always be fine. It doesn't really matter whether you're active or not. So should anyone ever return and become active, their seat's always there. And so that's kind of one of the biggest struggles is basically finding the right people to fill those roles, and then ensuring that they are there should I ever get, shot in the back of the head. So
the figurehead Puka.
yeah, that's the only real concern. But it's, again, all that entire view has definitely been kind of a little bit jaded by the overall lack of act. I mean, we're an MMO guild at the end of the day, and we're playing in an MMO wasteland right now. So everything seems kind of jaded from the point of view like, well, we don't have a lot of activity, we don't have a lot of so yeah, things have just kind of been on the sideline as far as that, because I really don't think that there's any need for succession at this point, or to have people lined up. Once we get more active in a particular title, I think those members will appear. So it's that's essentially where we're at.
I've had some people say that a guild leader should always step down when it becomes something more than they enjoy. So if it becomes, let's be real, leading a community is more or less a job, and it's something that you choose to do. But when it becomes something that you no longer enjoy doing, or is laborsome, or at the end of the night you throw your headphones across and you turn to your spouse or your cat or something and be like, oh, these people. Is that a good point that you need to step down? Would you, even if you didn't have anybody to fill that spot?
Yes.
I will take that from the opposite point. I would say no, and I would first ask myself, have you reached out to the others that stand beside you and asked for support in a lot of these issues? And I think that's again back to an organizational level: is do you have a support net yourself? If you and I am very confident, if you are the tip top of the castle and you don't have anyone under you, then when you have those moments, when you have like you've been dealing with a week or two of drama and it's just weighing on you, and real life is weighing as well, you're going to reach a breaking point. So do you have a support net in place? And that is very important, because if you don't, then you will have that and you'll just throw it at the wall, and then your entire community can crumble beneath that without that support net. You definitely need to be able to step away for a week or two and just get out of it. I think that's very healthy, and you need to have people in place that can keep things alive while you are away. You can't be alone at the top of the mountain there. You can't.
That's very true. It becomes very overwhelming. I mean, I will kind of reflect this on Bumble here, where he becomes the king of the castle, and then he moves on. And he creates another king of the castle, and he moves on. So in a way, he burns himself out of the idea that he created, and then he's like, and at the stage left, I like this idea. And he goes somewhere else and makes it, and that's great, and that's how he reacts to that. Whereas like more of us community folk, what I do is I'm just lazy and I just keep delegating. I'm burning out. Yeah, you have a job. Oh, you have a job now. How about you? Yeah, you have a job. And then 6 months down the road, when life is more in line with spending as much time as I can on the community, I will then kind of refocus those things and see how well each person picked up that mission. And some of them do, some of them don't. And you pick up the missions that failed, you scoop them back up under your authority and go, okay, let's do this, and jump back into it. And people get reinvigorated and excited and march forward. So,
but a lot of these things definitely are directly related to the size of your community and how well you have people in place to handle growth. I think that's very important. And I can attest for ours, like we have actively shut our doors before in titles because we did not have enough officers in place to handle growth. And I will continue to do that because I think it's very important. And I think I think what we have is something special. And if I truly don't have enough officers to support the amount of people, then yeah, the doors have just got to be closed. We won't be open all the time, but it's like if you don't have enough people to handle the drama that just natively comes when you put people together and try to get them to work together, then yeah, you'll pull your hair out. Look at this thin. Look at I mean, you'll pull your hair out. You can't do that. And so there are times.
Bubble brought up though is that guilds in general, no matter who you are, develop cliques. And in a way, especially when you're doing like recruitment, especially at the beginning of a game, when you have all these guilds and then guilds just start falling. like left and right for that first year. It's just a bloodbath of guilds that can't hang, right? And so you're just mass recruit. Let me take your 20. Let me take your 30. Let me take you. Well, what you're doing is you're making cliques. And they, in many ways, when I recruit like that, they self-officer themselves. They have a head of their own clique. They have members of, and they may eventually break off and do their own thing or whatever. But I find that the task is more of guiding them into being focusing that on the greater good of the group and going, okay, I know you don't like those guys, but you need warm bodies. I know you don't like those guys, but you still need warm bodies. So figure it out and work together and kick some ass. Yeah.
Yeah, clicks are not a negative thing in my opinion, and they are something that just naturally happen when you get certain personalities and put them together. But what is important is, I think it's very important to get people outside of their clique and working with other people just to introduce them to more people. And I think it's also very important to not make them feel like, all right, you guys can't just keep playing together. You've like, if you have a group of friends that came from another guild, they have a bond. You need to use that. You need to work them together. You need to work them and utilize the fact that they know more about each other than you know about them. And that's an asset to you. And that's just something you have to use and make them feel welcome for that. And then they, in turn, will, they will become members of your guild and not just members of their clique. And I think that's something that's very important, is helping them to identify unilaterally as members of your guild. And they all will be like, we're members of X guild and we just like to play together within that guild. I think that you get there eventually.
Okay, we have a question from Thraxter. Benevolent dictator or decentralized command? Which one of these types of guild leaders are you? And how do you think that particular way of leading affects your leadership role? And I'll even take it a step further. How does that affect your community?
Well, one, I've seen so many groups either build themselves around like a council, some kind of like democratic system. Others have the benevolent dictator. Right now, I kind of see my group almost like a company in a sense, where I'm essentially the entrepreneur at the top. I'm the, what do you want to call it, president or CEO? I don't care. But either way, I'm here to build something, and I have a clear vision. I have clear goals and how to get there, and I create roles and officer positions as they're needed to fulfill that vision. And eventually, as the group gets bigger, it will need to be decentralized, because if you're just one guy running a group of hundreds of people, it becomes too much to manage. So it really depends on how big you want to be, whether you want to be tight knit or whether you have aspirations to be like this in-game empire that has, like in Camelot, that would have like keeps and everything all over the land, or if you just want to be that small team that goes in and kicks everyone's ass.
So you're saying that you kind of start as this funky hybrid between the two, or even possibly a third type, but then as you grow and as you mature as a community, you're going to evolve into one of those two. I think Zeb brings up a good point here in chat, where you can be something other than those two. There's not just those two choices, but
I think, and I've been in groups before that had like councils and stuff like that, and I find the problem is, especially when you're on the small side, there can be a lot of differing opinions of how to take your group. And I think if you're building a guild and if you're building a community, you need to have a definite, someone has to be steering the helm, and someone has to have some kind of grand vision for the group, because otherwise you're going to lose it, because you have all kinds of competing opinions and people that might want to steer the group one way or another way. Someone ultimately has to be the leader to make decisions and kind of call shots.
I'd like to step. Sorry, go ahead and finish what you were saying.
That's not to say that like you can't consult with people. I do it all the time. If I have decisions to make, if I have any changes to make or whatever, I will consult community. I will go to officers. I'll be like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?" I will also go to. I'll also speak to members privately. I go, "Hey, I have these ideas. Tell me what you think." Because especially if you're a leader and you're making these kind of decisions, the last thing you want to do is make an unpopular decision, because that's how you get treason.
Yeah.
I was going to say, as a small guild that, or small community that has a council structure, um, I, I don't think it, and we've never really had an issue with differing ideals. I think what's important is we lay down what those ideals are going to be and what those objectives are going to be and agree on them in private before it's, taken to the guild as a whole. That said, there's not a whole lot of conversation that happens away from our members. They are all kind of part of it and involved in it. And again, clarity and transparency I think are something extremely important, to letting people feel like they have a stake and some ownership in their community, and especially letting them feel like they have a say and that their opinion has been heard. I think it's extremely important. But I could not, again, we stay and we try to stay very small and close knit. And I'm not saying that's the way to run it, when your numbers are into, multi hundreds or several thousands. That's definitely not the way to do it. But that's just, our unique perspective and how we've, been able to exist. And that's just, that's just how we are.
Fuck your members' opinion.
Okay, so the plague way of doing things is
No, their opinion is always well heard, but we definitely follow the council is there in our community on a level above what the game is like. So we're organizing everything from extracurricular activities to what games we're moving to, the 5-year plans, all those types of things go through our council. As far as the guild itself is led, it's pretty much a dictatorship. But they have the overall authority that the council and myself can be like, you're fucking it up real bad. You either fix this, this, and this, or I yank you. That's just how it's going to be. So we always kind of have that hierarchical leash, but we give our generals that run each game complete authority to kind of do what they need to do, as long as it's within the basic framework that Plague has put forward on how we operate, which is honestly pretty loosey-goosey in the first place. I mean, we want to be annoying terrors, but we also want to be able to do it without exploiting and doing things like that. And so those are types of behaviors that we don't tolerate.
So I think I come from more of a background where I'll set up a guild, and have in the past, as more of kind of how you would in business, where your person in charge is that person with the vision. They're the one that sees down the road. They're the one that sees where everything is going. And then you've got the people underneath you. You've got 3 primary. You've got someone that's really good at people. You've got someone that's good at strategy, that basically takes your vision and gets it to where you need to go. And then you've got that person that's really good at operations. And if any one of those 4 no longer has what they're good at, if your person with the vision, you've reached it and they've got nothing more, it's time to step down. It's time to let somebody else with a new vision come up and do it. That's generally how I've functioned within things.
So I guess my question is, who is responsible for one bringing that to the notice of that person with the vision, and then who is responsible for facilitating that transition?
For me and my things, usually that's laid out in our charter. That's something that those officers or the 3 main people underneath would have the ability to say, hey, you're no longer fitting this role, or you're turning into a malice. You need to go. You're just a big dick on everything that we're doing. Yeah, exactly. So, it's got to be the people up to you, underneath you, and that I think when we look at people for officers, those people that can manage up most effectively, those are the people that will eventually rise up because they understand that management isn't just about the little people underneath you. It's more about the grand vision for everything, and everybody has something to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's also why we like doing the guild cookouts and stuff like that, because everyone then feels like they're part of the bigger picture.
Isn't that just because they're drunk?
They're more malleable that way, you know.
Just pull a Joe Rogan to your guild members to be like, "Have you guys ever done DMT?"
And again, last week we had a wonderful troll. I think we've got a new one this week. Hust Freak, welcome. Thank you for joining us and giving us a account. That's great. So my next question to you guys: in the event where you've got a guild leader that steps down, or even an officer at that point, when we talk about leadership needing to step down, is this something in your experience, or just in your thought? Should they stay within the community, or should they separate out and go to a different community? How does this affect morale? There's lots of questions around this one.
For me, I think it definitely relates to the nature of the stepping away. 100%. If I mean, we 100% tell every member, no matter what, top to bottom, real life is the most important thing. That's what takes precedent. Um, and you are obligated to deal with real life before you sit down to play video games. So we definitely don't want you there wasting your time when you have things that you need to be accomplishing, or pressures on you, and you're sitting there running from them in video games. So real life is absolutely the most important, and there are no consequences from guild members or leadership or anything for stepping away to handle what's most important in life. So in regards to that, we always leave the seat for you at the table in terms of leadership. Now that doesn't mean you'll return and the responsibilities you had will still be there for you to take up. But what it does mean is that you can return back in there, and should you so desire to take some of the responsibilities that are put on someone's shoulder, we'll always share the load.
So you're always going to welcome them back into the fold.
Absolutely. Someone who went away for real life, and then they've got to a point where they can come back and game with us, and they want to get involved in the community and share the load of responsibilities. Absolutely.
What if it was a difference of opinion?
What do you mean?
I don't like the way you're doing stuff, so I'm going to step out.
If they left because of a difference of opinion, well, that again, so we all have an even stake in the guild. It's from a council standpoint. We all have the same stake in the guild, and if we don't come to a consensus as far as where we're going, then we need to sit down and talk about these things, and talk about what we want to be in a guild. And we have not hit that hurdle yet. Let's put it that way. And nor do I think we will, because of kind of the mindsets that we keep around us, and we are very understanding, and we talk about things and lay them out logically, and we're all kind of the same people. We're all filthy casuals that just want to sit and have fun and do our best in a video game and go hard and be serious. But listen, we got day jobs. We're not trying to kill ourselves. And so it's we've never really hit that hurdle before, and I don't foresee us ever hitting that hurdle. We've definitely had members come through and leave where they're like, either these guys are too casual for me, or not casual enough. Maybe we've had both. We've had both sides of the coin. So it's but that member we've never had a member like that come all the way into enjoying and sit on the council and then bring that dissidence into the conversation. So
yeah, I think someone would have to do something pretty extreme to kind of not be allowed back into the fold. I mean, if it's some guy who is an asshole and you kicked him from the big guild, I can understand like saying don't come back here. But yeah, like I've said, I've kind of led a lot of guilds and kind of ended up leaving those games and transferring ownership and all that. And I'll pop back in, see how they're doing sometimes, and none of them ever really hold any hard feeling against me for it. And in the same way, like in any game I play, I'll make at least like a couple of friends who just extend beyond that game, and we're just Discord friends who talk about all sorts of random stuff, and we're in all sorts of random chat rooms together. So yeah, I think one of the best things about being in a guild is just staying in connection with all of these various different people that you've played video games with over the years, and you'd have to have a really, really good reason to kind of say, no, stay away from us, like never come back.
So if you have a leader that's going off the rails and taking your guild in a direction that you just don't like, and you vote them down, but they want to stay with your guild.
That'd be kind of a bit shocking. Like when I was in that situation where we did like a little, coup d'etat on the guild, and we kind of ousted the guild leader. We made a new guild. We offered him like a spot in the guild because we were like, look, man, you're like a nice guy. Like we don't have anything against you. Like you can be in the guild and you can raid with us. And he was like, I'm not going to be in your guild that you stole from me. Like, no way. So I honestly don't know what I would do, but like if we ousted a guild leader and he was like, okay, but I think you guys are really cool and I'd appreciate if we could like continue like hanging out and playing together, I would definitely be like, yeah, like not going to turn that down.
Yeah, I'll speak from our perspective. If this is like, I'm trying to think of a member that sits on our council that could like sow seeds of dissidence and like try to tear it. Like it just doesn't exist, right? But if it did, right?
The utopian guild of the lollipop.
Well, another crucial skill in every member is we have to be excellent trolls. I mean, we are. We're pretty good because on the outside we brand ourselves as like we're awesome, loving, caring. Come on. The reality is deep down we're all suppressed trolls. We just like we're all just like suppressed closet trolls. And I have no doubt whatsoever we would just troll that person to death where they would walk out the door and they were like, I can't deal with this. I mean, we would go far. It would be bad. It would be borderline like police might show up. It'd be bad. So like we would just troll them 100% out the door. Like we're just too good at it. It's like it's not a problem. So it's like we just don't. The members will get involved and be like, come on, this is fun, guys. Let's just do it. Like if you can't handle the pressure, there's a lot of pressure. So it's like you just gotta have a mentality. We really are closet trolls, though. Well, I love trolls. We're recruiting trolls.
Puka, I think people are going to start paying to see.
I'm going to recruit every troll in the channel.
I think people are going to start paying to see Mrs. Puka throw a spider on your desk.
Nope.
Like,
none of that. She won't do it. She's more scared than I will. She won't. You ain't gonna make that happen.
So we actually had this happen in Plague, where I actually asked a member of our council to step down. Real life had just sacked him so hard that he wanted to be on the council. He wanted to stay there, and he wasn't kind of getting his own hint that he just was missing all the meetings. He was missing, like we don't exactly have like stringent meetings, like maybe every other month. Like we're not exactly like spending that much time crushing it as far as the time served that he needed to have. But he was still missing everything. And, I'm like, listen, we're thinking of bumping this other person up. We need a room. So we're going to ask you to step down. And I'm still friends with him on Facebook, and I've been working on luring him kind of back into the guild because he's a good guy. There's nothing against him. He just wasn't active enough to be a person who could really stand and deliver as far as a member of the council. I mean, the people that you want on your council are people who are going to be active, excited, and involved. And if they're not excited and involved, the rest of your guild loses that enthusiasm as well.
So that's a great next question for you, the rest of you anyway, since now that Malice has answered that. as leaders, you obviously have lots of officers or council members that serve your beck and call type thing. Are you the one that tells them they need to step down, or do you trust the rest of your officer group or council, as it were, to do that for you? Do you consult them when you're thinking about asking someone to step down or to leave? How do you guys go about to do that?
So we have never had to dismiss an officer because of negative actions they were actively taking against the guild. Generally, every replacement or dismissal in that regard has more been, honestly, it's been in regards to responding to real life, because we think it's really important that you do step away, and it's never a negative thing. It is always like, hey, so and so's got some stuff that they need to deal with, and we need to either distribute these responsibilities, or we need someone who wants to step up and take that role. And that's every time. That's how it's been. And you don't always have someone that's willing. And so that's where, if someone doesn't offer, that's when you go out and pick, and you go out and approach people and be like, hey, I think this is a good role for you because of this. You're already doing this. Would you be willing to take that? And, that's essentially how succession has worked with us. And that's it. And we're blessed to be able to have that and not have, drama. Again, we'll troll drama to death. The drama just doesn't, it's not an effective tool of sowing seeds with this. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You can try. It's not. We love it. We eat it up. We're like, we're just trolls.
All right, so if you're here from Puka's group, he just challenged you to try.
Yeah, tear us apart.
The rest of you guys?
Tear Tempest Wolves apart.
Bumble, have you had to dismiss any of your...
So no, I've not personally had to dismiss an officer. Again, I would think they'd have to do something pretty extreme to have me come in there and say you're dismissed as an officer. But I mean, I have been in the situation where maybe I say hey, it's okay, if you don't want to be officer anymore, because some people they feel like they have an obligation to be the officer, and they don't it might not be fitting with whatever their current life circumstances are. And then I feel like it's okay to be like, hey, you can just be in the guild and kind of not even play that much and focus on your life stuff and not be an officer, and that's fine. But I've never really had to say
and so yeah,
you're
I'll hit off Bumble.
Don't be an officer anymore.
A lot of times you are the person that are recognizing that this person needs to take a break, because you see things falling through the crack, or you see them not doing a great job, and you have a talk with them, and it turns out it's real life, and that's when you're that's when you just have a heart to heart with them and be like, hey, it's okay. This is a video game. We're playing games, guys. It's video games.
Exactly.
Go take care of your life. It's okay. We'll find someone else. It's all right. You're not. And a lot of people, they have this, they feel like they're letting you down so much. Like, I wanted to do this for you. And it's it's all right.
Yeah.
You just people's jobs aren't at stake here. We're not paying people money. We're people are still eating. It's not like people are getting fired because we're trying to organize and play video games.
Paid?
Relax. Wait,
you're doing it wrong, bro.
What? Malice, will you pay me? I'll leave right now. I'll leave right now.
This has all been really fascinating, because most of you are leaders of PvP centric, would you all say, guilds and communities. None of you are really...
We want to fight other people.
Right, you're not really role-play based communities or guilds. I've been in a number of those, and getting rid of leadership or even a guild master in a role-playing community...
Now
that is a whole nother ball of... speak to it then. You got something?
Yeah, we actually... So when I kind of inherited what would be the figurehead role of leadership in Harbinger Light, I inherited that from somebody who was very role-play centric. And we actually had a rule in our charter that, about role-play and concerning guild chat and concerning, things like typing OOC when you were speaking out of character. Because when I first joined the guild, that's what we were, in Dark Age Camelot. We were a role-play guild. And I mean, and this is a whole different discussion of like the breakdown of role play in MMOs. Because I witnessed it. I joined a guild that was very role play, and I witnessed that breakdown. And we have since removed that rule a long time ago in our charter. Because it was something I didn't enforce, because it was something I didn't really participate in a whole lot. Not to say I don't enjoy it, but I just didn't do it all the time. And so it was something that when I wasn't enforcing it, when other officers weren't enforcing it, when your entire leadership team is not enforcing it and they're not participating, we're like, why are we doing this? And so again, that was one of those things where the original leader did like doing that, and the original council members put that in the charter. And then time changed, and we just had a shift, and we made a change, and it's not there anymore. And that's okay, you know. It's just, and role play is one of those things. I think it's very specifically one of those things that has just changed over the past 15 years of games.
I'm with you. 'Cause we used to always go on roleplay servers. Like, even if we were doing PvP, we like being on roleplay servers because we like the interaction and
the
like,
members, the maturity of the members.
right. And you tended to have these really cool, like, okay, so you kind of kept this honorable, feel to whatever you're doing or whatever like that, because it was, pseudo in character. Even if you weren't like, even if your members weren't like hardcore role players, as long as they were polite and whatever to people, like, it worked. But like, I swear, in the last 6-7 years now, I would say that role playing has gone from this kind of cool, we're in character, pseudo in character, to role playing's for ERP and people who I mean, and that's just, I'm like, oh, geez.
Well,
that creates more drama and role play than anything else, and all of a sudden it's like, oh.
And I don't want to completely change the subject, but let's be honest, VoIP applications are what caused the fall of role play. We're in here, we're in voice, and you're like, you're typing as your character, and then everyone's, well, it's not that so much as like, okay, it's a little bit of that, but everyone's like laughing at each other about what you just did, and we're laughing in voice, and we made that stronger IRL connection.
I mean, that's because when you go into voice, if you start role playing, you're then getting into like LARPing territory.
Well, no, I'm talking about role playing in text, but while also being in like a Ventrilo or TeamSpeak server back in the day, because that's what caused the breakdown in our guild. Like
it's a little weird.
We had our guild, correct? We had our guild chat, and it was like we tried to keep it in role play, but at the same time, there were like 20 of us sitting in Ventrilo, and it's like, we could talk normal here, right?
As a former LARPer, I could say that
lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt.
Not popular.
All right, guys, we have gone down like the rabbit trail of rabbit trails here.
I'm sorry.
The point of our bringing up RP was to talk about trying to dismiss either an officer with an RP-based guild, or a guild master, guild leader within an RP-based guild. In my experience, this has been like pulling teeth. These people are, again, in my experience, a lot more power hungry than somebody who leads a PvP guild. It's, everybody understands you're just here to do the thing. If you're in an RP, you have built up this massive story, usually, that everybody else fits into. And if somebody has the gall to walk up to you and say, you know what, you need to be gone, you have to have an event where you basically chop the person's head off so that they're not allowed to come back. And even then, it almost always forces a guild reform.
Well, yeah. And one of the games we're building in, we have the fortunate ability to throw someone in an airlock if we need to remove them.
Well, so I think it depends on your RP community, right? So a lot of people they like the individuals that are playing the characters because they like what they bring to a character. Whereas another person would be like, all right, but what this person brought to a character is against what I wanted for my character and for what I wanted for the community that character is a member of. But am I going to stay true to my character, or am I going to stay true to who I am? And I think that's the biggest thing in RP communities, is that question of, do you go and keep playing with the people that are the voices behind the characters you love, or do you remain true to your character and stay with potentially a guild that had a moment of mutiny or an overthrow, and does that character stay with that guild? So I think that's the divide kind of you're seeing, and most people, and we see splits because most people want to stay with the actual people that are behind the characters that they like RPing with, right? So at the end of the day, I think they have a connection to the person at the keyboard and not the character that you created.
As,
And that's why
as Mrs. Puka says in chat, the downfall of many, if not most, role-playing communities is based on the inability to separate the OOC, the person. Gosh, it's like you guys are married or something. And the in-game character. So, those of you listening, if you've got questions for anyone in this group, special guest Bumble, hit him up with something if you want to know anything about him or his TDD people, even though he looks like CSE modeled one of their characters off of Bumble. Put your questions.
Yeah, we know what realm he's playing.
Put your
TDD for life.
Put your questions into chat. Otherwise, Malice, I'll chuck this at you since you've also been kind of down that RP path. Do you find that it's harder to dismiss people out of an RP guild than a PvP? And I know we're kind of saying there are two types of guild. For the purpose of this discussion, we'll just go with fact RP and PvP.
Right. I will use the example of Star Wars Galaxies, and where I ran actually as a crafting guild and a role-playing guild. And yeah, we had a lot of weird scenarios that ended up either people leaving the guild. I literally had a player delete their character. If they were a master tailor, master this, that, and the other thing like that, they deleted it because they died in a roleplay scene.
I respect that.
Yeah, see, I was kind of like, no, you're crazy. Get out of my guild. That was the line that was just like, nope, too far. You're done.
That's awesome. Do they have a funeral and everything too?
Well, my guild would have probably, but it was so much drama of me going, "What are you doing?" Like that. She was like, "Well, I can make another level 1 character in the guild," and I'm like,
Hey, I mean, again, some people have that, and it's a legitimate option in a lot of RPG games. Is a hardcore mode where your character cannot return from death.
And I totally accept that is something that they are welcome to go do.
Well, and I would say your learnable moment from that is to at least have a specific rule about that in your initiation or mission statement. Like, hey guys, like we're role playing, but don't delete your character. Like, and if people want to do that, sorry.
Speaking of role playing, have you guys heard about the funeral bombing in Planetside?
No.
So there's this one outfit in Planetside and Planetside 2 called the Enclave. They were Terran Republic and known as like the Troll Guild. And there's video of it out there too. I can link it after. But basically a prominent community member had passed away. And so all of the guilds on the Terran Republic faction, even people made characters on the other factions.
This is like legitimately passed away in real life?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, IRL died. So they held like a funeral service in game for this guy.
I know a lot of groups that will do that.
They're at a friendly base. They're doing like a 21 gun salute, whole shebang, and all that kind of thing. And then the Enclave comes in, all in bombers, and they just bomb the ever living hell out of this funeral. And it's friendly fire too. It's not even a different faction. They're just bombing their own faction.
Wow.
We actually had that on Percival. We had there was a big Albion guild leader that passed away, and every people from Midgard and from the Hibs and everything like that all showed up in the
Other
middle
servers
PvP
even.
zone. Yep, just all showed up to pay their respects, and of course, there were
takes one
gankers.
a-hole.
There was just gankers killing everybody that was trying to get to the funeral for points.
So, hey, those of you that are here on this panel, do you have any questions for Bumble, since he's kind of new with us today and from the tree hugger side of the world? Puka,
how
I
you're...
have none. He's
how
gained my
much are you
respect
touching
completely.
for?
What'd you say, Malice?
How often are you testing? Are you guys? Is your guild hitting all the tests or?
Yeah, so my guild, it's called Lords. It's a TDD guild, and our main focus right now is on testing the Camelot Unchained beta. So yeah, we hit up pretty much every test with about 4 people. We're a pretty small guild. It is a pretty small community actually doing kind of active testing on that game. But yeah, we're in most of the tests. I mean, Camelot Unchained runs on a limited testing schedule, so and our schedules just kind of line up with it. So yeah,
Well,
we're there all
that's
the time.
good. That's been the biggest problem I've had with Plague is we have tons of people with IT privileges and all that stuff
Mhm.
access, and we can't make 98% of the tests because they're always like Friday afternoon, and it's like, yep, we're all at work. You let us know when. Oh, look, we got home. Oh, testing's gonna run for one more hour.
Can log in on my lunch break, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that pain. When I started Lords, it was at the beginning of the beta, so it's been like 1 year at this point. I was just recruiting a bunch of people like from the forums and stuff, and pretty much every single person I recruited from the forums just ended up being like, oh, when they saw the reality of the testing schedule, they're like, I actually can't, make it to any of these tests. And I had to kind of end up switching to like recruiting people that I actually met in the tests and that I knew were active testers and that was working with their schedule. And I've built up a core of about 6 members that are all like fairly active in the tests. So
If you've
it's fun.
ever done any of the tests, it's likely that you've been ganked by Bumble and his crew.
Yeah, that's true. We play all the factions and we just, try to really kind of push the current implementation of the beta to its limit and
That's good.
see what kind of crazy stuff we can do.
Because we were trying to set up with a couple other guilds, and we wanted to went up with a list of about 50 players that would all come out, but we needed to have a better orderly test schedule before we could do it. Like,
Right.
but if I could do it, as soon as they start making it so if it's like all day, even Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if they just did it like
That'd be sweet.
a continuous run for 3 days and then bring it down, then that organization will you'll definitely see like 50 more players just pop into test.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, not to completely steer the conversation came on Unchained, but I think a lot of it is definitely when they are at the point in their development cycle where they want to shift to try to play and getting people into the game and playing the game and checking out the features. You will see a lot more of those weekend tests come back and
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
The problem
Also,
is
I want to give a
go
quick
ahead.
shout out to Zaylin because actually in our little community here, the Smart Gamer Live Discord, he was saying, oh, I want to, kind of ask CSE to give us a little more lead time on a test so maybe we can get some more guilds in there. And then, the next day, CSE comes out and says, oh, some member of the community came forward and asked us to give you guys some lead time on tests. So here's a 2-week notice. And actually about 150 people showed up on Saturday or so, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you for setting that up, Zaylin.
That's Smart Gamer Live. We're all about trying to influence the developers to do more for us as communities and things that will benefit us as communities. And that was something that a lot of the people in this community have been wanting. And so CSE was open to trying it, and I think after chatting with them after the fact, they're going to entertain the idea more. And the pounding that you hear is my son enjoying himself upstairs. So it went well for them. They had a lot more people than they've had in the past, so I think we will start seeing at least once a month having a testing that's a week or 2 out so that we can plan for all of our different communities to join in. So
Yeah, that's
that
great.
will definitely help.
And since I got all you guild leaders here, just feel free to message me if you ever have some members who want to hop on a test and they're looking to test out anything and you need warm bodies, let me know, and we're always down to test any random old thing in the game.
Sounds good.
So we can also do that on the Discord as well. If you've got people, get them in there. For those of you that are listening, if you do know other leaders, even within other games, we've gained some people from Final Fantasy recently, a couple people from WoW Classic, even though that doesn't start up for another week.
Discord link's right there.
What?
No, right there.
Yes.
Yeah, right there.
We'll put a link down below if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're on Twitch, the link is already down there. Join us, join the conversation. Let us know what the community can do for you. Strangely enough, there's power in numbers when it comes to things, but we are all about trying to help this community out and get to know a lot more really cool people. Bumble, it's been wonderful having you. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It was fun. And
be on the lookout on the YouTube channel for the Community Spotlight with Bumble and his crew. Coming out in a week or two. Faylords. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next week.
What are you doing with your writing, Poison Taco?